Hello. We've got a couple starters. Sorry, I was running a little late today. Had some wig issues because this ain't my real hair. None of these wigs have been my real hair, unless maybe they are. Hope everyone did have a good weekend. Hopefully, we're gonna be reading chapter 12 today. Oh, and I meant to. Oh wait, hold on. Stay right there. I'm gonna be right back. I have to go grab something that I was supposed to do to show you all earlier. So 1 second. 1 second. I'll be right there. Keep waiting. Okay, I'm coming back. Hope you're all still there. Okay, we were able to finally get all of the past book readings on YouTube. Our friend Mary, who just signed on, I'm going to give you the link to that YouTube so you can go back in and watch all the last 11 hours. Maybe it's not fully 11 hours because they're not all exact an hour, but I want to discuss something before we get into this reading, and it's this wig. I am reading today. I was a couple minutes late, so here I go. Mary, this wig has some issues. It looks like it's had its day. I think it's time that you get a new wig supply. Just kidding. I'm very grateful for all the new wigs because I've run out. But I can't tell if this is upside down or right side. I've switched it around multiple ways. But we're going to get right into our reading in just a second. I needed to write something out. I'm going to show you all the link to get all of the other past readings. Okay. Well, it is a fun wig. It does look like I got blown backwards. Okay. Really quick, and I'll show this again, but this is where you go to find the last few chapters. You go to www.youtube.com/Curious Workshop. That is where you'll find the last few readings and the rest of the forever readings. I was able to finally upload it. So, without further ado, we're going to go right into chapter 12. Chapter 11 was all about her departure from Porter Wagner and how she was able to start her own solo career. So now, who knows where the rest of the book will lead us. It's very exciting. Goodness, I feel like the chapters are getting longer and longer, so I'm not even going to dally around because Instagram Live cuts you off after an hour. So we got to get going, and I got to go package up some orders that were shipped into us ordered over the weekend. We were super appreciative of the online orders, and Monday is packing day. So here we go. Without further ado, we are reading Dolly Parton, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, a 1990s biography by HarperCollins Publishing House. I'm sure there's an LLC in there. Okay, here we go. 40 years of friendship, Judy and me. A true friend is one of the greatest gifts a person can ever have. If you recall, Judy was one of her dearest friends that she had in high school. That was them back in the day. Judy. Okay. They say that in order to have a friend, you could have to be one. No truer words were ever spoken. Judy and I have given a lot, and we have taken a lot. We have had our problems, our ups and downs, but the love has always been great enough to overcome. One thing we've had to overcome is the constant rumor that Judy and I are lesbian lovers. It is understandable. Most people can't understand two women being so close and devoted to each other. The fact that Judy has never married probably fans the flames as well. That's not to say that she hasn't been around, hasn't been asked, hasn't broken a few good old boys' hearts by saying no. She loves her work and she loves traveling. I know if she ever found somebody she loved enough, she'd give it up. I also know that I love her enough to let her go. Judy is one of the most special angels, is one of my most special angels. I'm sure many a maid in many a hotel has wondered why Judy and I will leave a double room with only one bed slept in. We have always slept together since we were kids, class trips, whatever, and it has always been honest and innocent. We sit up in bed, watch TV, read. We lie in the darkness and talk, just like any old couple would do. Why scream across the room when you don't have to? I don't like to sleep alone. Never did. I try not to whenever I can help it. Tabloid headline: after all these years, Dolly admits I sleep with Judy Collins or Judy Ogle. Maybe that helps sell this book. I could titillate you by telling you that Judy and I make love, and then I'd have to disappoint you with the truth. We've made a lot of love through the years for ourselves and other people, but we've never been lovers, just good old pure sweet fun-loving friends. I will admit we talk a lot about sex. We always did growing up. We, like all kids, were very curious, playing doctor and nurse, very healthy, exploring. Our relationship is wholesome, but exciting and fun. Thelma and Louise ain't got nothing on us. Judy went to the Air Force right out of high school at the same time I went to Nashville. We kept in touch and saw each other when she was on leave and decided she could come to live with me as soon as she got out. By the time that happened, I was already married to Carl and had worked with Porter and done pretty well for myself. Judy came to work with me as my assistant, my valet, hairdresser, makeup artist, everything she needed to be. She still is. Well, life was pretty good, and it seemed like the time was right for my old friend and me to go on an adventure. I thought we should go to New York City and shoot the moon. Porter's show was not seen there, and the two of us could go unnoticed. It seemed perfect. At that time, Judy and I both carried .38 caliber handguns in our purses for protection. Judy had been an expert markswoman in the service. I felt comfortable enough around a gun, and at that time, I thought carrying one was the thing to do. So Thelma and I put our shooting irons into our checked baggage to be put into our purses after we arrived in New York. We checked into a nice hotel, one room, a big bed. We got ourselves all decked out in our gaudiest hillbilly glamour outfits. Of course, I had always dressed like a trash queen, my hair big, gaudy jewelry, and clothes too tight. Judy had been much more plain until her days in the service. Now, she had her hair teased up, painted her eyebrows nearly up to the hairline, and wore tight skirts. She had even taken to smoking and drinking. So off we went to party. We weren't looking for men, we just wanted to do the city and let the chips fall where they may. One thing I had always been curious about was porno movies. There was nothing like that back in Tennessee at the time. At least not out in the open. We wanted to check one out, just out of curiosity. It wasn't hard to find one in New York. We waited around outside the theater for a few minutes. I guess even with all our sense of freedom, our upbringing still made us feel like we had to sneak into a place like that. Outside the theater, with its flashy marquee and provocative movie titles, seemed sexy and alluring. Inside, it seemed kind of sad and twisted. There was an awful smell in the place, and everything felt gummy and sleazy. I think we must have been the only women in there. There weren't all that many men even. The ones who were there were the raincoat type. The movie started. What we thought would be exciting and sexy was gross, filthy, and insulting. My spirituality turned my guilt meter up to high. I looked at Judy and could tell she felt the same way. Without a word, we bolted for the door and right out the front of the theater. I wanted to just keep running until the night air had cleansed us, until we were well away from anybody who had seen us come out of that place. Hi, Andy. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well. Oh, for those new joiners, we are reading Chapter 12, My Life and Other Unfinished Business by none other than Dolly Parton, published in 1994. We got a few blocks up the street and started laughing at how stupid we had been. I'd love to let you join in the video, Andy, but I am pressed for time. This is a long chapter, and they only give you an hour. But I think we'll be doing a question and answer session when we get to the end of the book, and I'll be letting people in to share the screen, and we'll, make this more involved. But we got to get through this chapter today. We got a few blocks up the street and stopped and leaned against a wall to catch our breath. When we were able, we started laughing at how stupid we had been. So there we were in the part of town, dressed the way we were, leaning against a building. A man came up and started talking to me. He said, "Come on, baby, what's it gonna cost me?" I was too rattled to understand what he was talking about, and I said, "Go on, now leave us alone. We're just visiting. We don't need no company." The man had been drinking. He kept pulling at me. "Come on, baby," he pressed. "You know you want it. Just tell me what it costs." By this time, Judy is laughing her butt off. She had been to nightclubs when she was in the service and was more accustomed to this kind of thing. I was getting really upset. That made Judy laugh harder. She gets a real kick out of seeing me get upset or get myself into stupid situations. I got more and more frustrated. By now, the man was grabbing at me in places I reserved for grabbers of my own choosing. I became irate. I pulled out my gun and I said, "You touch me one more time, you son of a bitch, and I'm going to blow your nuts off." There is a line like that in 9 to 5 about turning a rooster into a hen. At that moment, I was in no mood to soften my language like that. The man didn't want to argue with Smith & Wesson and me, so he turned tail and left. Although I could hear him call me a bitch as he walked away, I breathed a sigh of relief. Then I breathed a sigh of disbelief as I turned to see Judy smoking a cigarette, still laughing. I turned on her. "Look, you laugh one more time and I'll shoot your nuts off too." I can't stop laughing. It's so funny. Oh, God, it's so good. I couldn't believe she had the balls to laugh at me at a time like that. She must have believed me enough to take on a much more serious demeanor. The next man who came along was a businessman, probably cruising 42nd Street for the same reason as the first one. But, being from out of town, he recognized me from the Porter Wagner show. "You girls are lost, ain't you?" he said. I was so glad to hear a familiar southern sound of voice. I would have almost given him the other man I had been willing to pay for. I would have almost given him what the other man had been willing to pay for. We admitted that we were lost, and he offered to walk us to our hotel. That is just the best story. I love that story. Back to it. On the way, he explained to us that prostitutes in that part of town work in pairs for safety's sake. That, coupled with the way we were dressed, would naturally lead men to make assumptions. I was grateful for the information, but a little puzzled. By my own standards, I thought we were in the height of fashion. When we got to our hotel, we were shocked to find our luggage out in the hall. Apparently, the hotel management had assumed we were working girls as well. After all, we only had one room. We put our things directly into a taxi. We had somebody put our luggage in there too. We waited almost all night at the airport to get a flight back to Nashville, and I vowed that we hated New York and would never return. It struck me as a contrast to our high school trip, when the whole city had been plastered with "Hello, Dolly." Now it seemed to be saying, "Goodbye, Dolly." Of course, I love New York now. I have an apartment there, which I share with Sandy Galen, and Judy and I often go there. We're a little more sophisticated now and pretty much know what's what when we go out to the movies, real ones, not pornos. Oh, Katie, you just joined us. Welcome. Hope you're having a good day. We are in the middle of Chapter 12, and I did, just so everyone knows, we are in Chapter 12 of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business, and I did get all of the past chapters up on YouTube, and I shared the link already, but I will share the link at the end of the video, so we're going to keep on going. Okay. After all, we can see that on TV now. Joke? Joke. I might add here, Judy no longer smokes or drinks. I know that Judy is always there for me. I'm likely to wake up in the middle of the night with an urge to ride and feel like driving out to my Tennessee mountain home. 200 miles away, I'll call Judy and ask, "How long would it take you to get ready to go?" I'm on a writing binge. She'll be at my door within an hour, free to go, free to stay, as long as we want or need to. It's a wonderful feeling of freedom, that you can do a thing like that with a person who's excited about it as you are. Judy will get into my head, waiting eagerly for whatever comes out next. I sit with my guitar and she writes everything down. Sometimes I'll ask her, put down all the words you can think of that rhyme with this or that, or whatever. I tend to forget to eat, if you can believe that, when I'm writing, and Judy always keeps me from hurting myself. Just about the time my blood sugar gets low, she'll be there with a bowl of Jell-O. Writing is an intensely personal thing, best done alone. Being with Judy is better. It's like being alone but with somebody, if that makes any sense. The two of us often go on to what we call spiritual journeys to the mountains, to the sea, to meditate, and to pray. Judy doesn't read the Bible or study religion the way I do, but she loves to hear me discuss it. She knows how I hunger and thirst after righteousness. We do affirmations and make lists. I guess I'm her guru in a way. If she has a problem, I can usually find a scripture that will be of some help. By the same token, her strength and her natural goodness are just as supportive to me. Judy is very protective of me. She knows when I'm in a bad way emotionally or have PMS or whatever, and she'll screen calls and keep pressure away from me at those times. My family is especially grateful for her devotion to me. Carl knows that when I'm with Judy, I'm well taken care of. Everybody thinks of her as a part of the family. People I work with sometimes hear me call her Sissy, and they think that's her name, like Sissy Spacek. Before long, somebody else will refer to her as Sissy, and she'll say, my name is Judy. Ain't nobody calling me Sissy but Dolly. Once I got a good laugh on Judy. She was home on leave from the service. She knew I had gotten married, but she had never met Carl. I was visiting her at her folks' place back in the mountains. Carl had come with me, but being the junkyard dog he was always out combing through the considerable junk car collection Judy's dad kept around as a part-time parts business. Judy nosed Carl out the window and just about flipped. She was practically climbing the cabinets trying to get a better look at him and asking her mama, who's that good-looking man in the yard? I wanted to keep her going for a while and enjoy the moment, but her mama put her out of her misery with, that's Dolly's husband. Her damn year high competitive woman look quickly melted into the, I'm so happy for you smile of a true friend. Maybe something like that. Judy still thinks Carl is a hot number. They have a mutual love and respect, although it is largely unspoken. They look out for each other in the little ways. Carl will change the oil or rotate the tires on Judy's car. She'll make sure he has enough milk in the fridge or pick up the latest copy of Wheels and Deals for Carl before driving out to our place. The main reason the three of us have managed so well for so long is that we all respect each other's privacy. It is a wonderful and necessary part of any relationship to know that you can depend on someone to be there. It is just as essential to know that at times you can depend on them not to be. Carl and I were aware of that when we bought the property our house would eventually stand on. I had not yet achieved anything that could be considered stardom. Still, I said to Carl, we'd better buy a big enough lot so that we can have privacy when the tour buses come by trying to look in. He accepted that notion without question, showing that he had faith in my dream too. This made me love him even more. They say that love isn't about two people gazing in each other's eyes. It's about two people gazing outward in the same direction. I believe that with all my heart. Although it was hard for us to afford at the time, we bought 75 acres in Brentwood, Tennessee to build our dream house on. Nowadays, that would be impossible at any price. Brentwood has become a quite popular place to live. But back then, there were hardly any homes out there. When I had first come to Nashville, I lived in the most awful places you can imagine. I occupied cellars, tiny little trailers, anything that was cheap. When Carl and I got married, we first lived at the Glengarry Apartments on Murphyboro. This is a long street word. I mean, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13 letters. What kind of street name has 13 letters? I'm going to try to pronounce it for you. Murfreesboro Road. Murfreesboro Road. I'm gonna spell it. Murphreesboro. That is exactly what's tripping me up. The REES between the Murph and the Borough. God, that's a weird word. Tennessee. What can I say? I love Tennessee. Sorry. Not making fun. Okay, I'm going back to it. The first house we bought together was a 2-story brick home at Antioch. And it was nice enough, but not our dream house. The house we built in Brentwood was and still is. Our home is special to me for many reasons. My uncle Dot Watson was the primary builder. It gave the house a special feel to know that Uncle Dot helped to create it. In appreciation, I let him talk a new generation of Parton children into planting horse turds on the ground outside. Carl also put his blood and sweat into the house, literally. He busted his finger many a time and left his blood on the rafters here and there. My brothers Denver and Randy also helped build. It was very much a family affair. Denver was a much more serious carpenter than Randy, who only worked on the house when he couldn't get a gig playing music somewhere. I remember one day Carl needed power for a saw and yelled to Randy, "Give me a cord!" Randy asked, "What kind of cord?" To which Carl jokingly replied, "Well, not a damn guitar cord." Our house is in what they call the Confederate style. With 23 rooms, a lot of people call it terrace. But Carl and I never have. To us, it will always be Willow Lake Plantation. True to my dreams, the tour buses do come by now and fans can see the house. But it is set back far enough from the road that they don't actually see us. Maybe it was because I grew up in such a small cabin with so many people that I found ways to fill the rooms. Some of my younger brothers and sisters were still living with us. People often ask me why I took them to raise. I always answer that they took me to raise them. I don't mean to imply that my mama and daddy were not capable of raising them, that they were unwilling to. It was just that some of the kids wanted to get out of the hills and have a better chance at life, and I wanted to help them do that. First, my sister Cassie came to live with us, then my sister Frida and my brother Floyd, the twins. Finally, Rachel became a part of our extended family. Randy sort of came and went. When she got out of the service in 1969, Judy came to live in our house as well and was a great help in taking care of all of the kids. Carl was good enough to let them all stay. I guess, to be honest, I should say he was good enough to let me stay after taking in so many kids. We were like parents to them in every way. We fed and clothed them and saw that they got to school and back. We couldn't help but worrying about them. I did everything I could do to worry the hell out of them in return. At least now we have a house big enough for everybody. I guess it has always been my way to draw my family and those I love to me to my home and my business and my life. My uncle Lewis Owens had come to Nashville to help me run my publishing company. Of course, his wife, my dear friend Colleen, came with him. They lived close enough that we could talk together and play together. That we could walk together and play together. There was a great hill for sledding behind Colleen's house, and on snowy days, when you couldn't drive anyway, we'd get together over there, and have a bang-up time going down the hill. It was as though our childhoods had been continued. A group of us created a club we called Hell's Bells, jokingly patterned after the Hells Angels. It was just a bunch of overgrown women with mopeds, but we thought we were every bit as bad as the originals. The charter members were Judy, me, Colleen, Cassie, Colleen's friend Margaret Hickle, who would come down from Knoxville to help Colleen with her children and do my house cleaning. Colleen sewed really well, so she made outfits for all of us. I bought the mopeds in all colors, and we were off to terrorize the back streets of Nashville. One day, we were out on the streets in a competitive mode and decided to race to see who could be the first one back to my driveway. Each belle took off on what she thought was the fastest way back to my house. I went down one street and Colleen took another. We got to the house at the same time, but from different directions. I tore across the front yard trying to get the jump on Colleen. She took a different angle toward the same direction. With our eyes more on our goal than each other, we crashed together, then into the same tree. We were both bruised, burned from the exhaust pipe, scratched and scraped, but laughing to beat the band. Judy and Margaret came along and picked up what was left of us. Julie had sprained her wrist. Since she was a hairdresser, that was an unfortunate injury for her. I had scratched my face, and since I wasn't on TV, that was about the worst thing I could have done. That was the end of the gang, at least as far as the mopeds were concerned. We turned them over to my adopted kids, and to Colleen's two real ones, Richie and Jeff. Of course, we were awfully picky about how carefully the kids rode them after having been so harebrained ourselves. I think the reason the moped idea had appealed to me in the first place is that I was so strictly controlled. As a kid, I longed to do something wild, even dangerous. I love my mama dearly, but she will still try to control me today in certain ways if I let her. Carl thinks that mama is a lot like me. She is, or I am. Well, we are. Mama and I aren't alike when it comes to decorating, though. I wanted my big house in Nashville to be done with real special. So my favorite decorator, Bill Lane, came in from Los Angeles. I told him to give it a good cross between LA and Nashville with different things from all over the world. He mixed in a few oriental pieces and included several religious statues. And he added one big fat Buddha that sat in my music room. If you're just joining us, we are in chapter 12 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. We're learning all about Dolly's new home that she built. 23 rooms. Well, my mama came to visit. I came home one day to find all my Buddha statues sitting out in the yard. Without asking, she had taken all the pieces that were against her religion and got them out of the house. She said, "I ain't having no young'un of mine worshiping no idol god." I didn't know what to say, as I paid a lot of money for them, and thought they looked good in the house. Carl has a special love relationship with my mother. He just said, "Well, if they're bothering your mama, I'll get rid of them." So he took them up to the storage barn. Of course, after mama left, we brought them all back into the house again, except for the big fat one, which I gave to a friend because I didn't want to go completely against mama. Mama was very pleased that Carl had taken her side. I believe, however, that Carl may have simply been setting her up in his own mischievous way. See, mama had this groundhog's foot on her little gold chain that she wore around her neck as a good luck charm. It was a superstition, like a lucky rabbit's foot, and it was as offensive to me as the Buddha had been to mama. But that was different, 'cause it was about mama. She said, "Your daddy killed this groundhog, and I fixed it for him with sweet potatoes, and he said it was the best that he'd ever had." Well, we had such a good time after supper that night that I thought I'd have a little charm made out of the groundhog's foot, and now I wear it for good luck and memories. Well, that was all she had to say. Later that day, Mama and I were in the kitchen cooking supper when Carl came meandering back in from the barn. Around his neck was a huge, and I do mean a huge, log chain that hung down to his knees, and on that swung a big old bleached cow skull, and the chain threaded through its eye sockets. He didn't speak, he just clanked as he walked over to the sink to wash his hands. Nobody said a word as he milled about the kitchen. All through dinner, he sat with that giant lucky skull hanging down to the floor, but we talked as if nothing were unusual. I was dying of laughter inside, though, because this was his way of getting on her about her lucky foot and my Buddha. And I know she must have been dying too, but she couldn't ever admit it. So in a way, Carl was getting revenge on my behalf. There's something kind of sweet and also romantic about it. Carl is not romantic in the way that some men are. Actually, he's cheap. He's the kind who'll go to a drugstore on Valentine's Day and get 2 boxes of candy. He'll give one to me without a card and say, "Well, here." The other one he'll put in the freezer for the next year, just in case he might forget. I used to take this personally, but I don't anymore. Carl is also the same person who'll pick up the first spring flowers and put them in a jar and place them in my music room with a little poem written just for me. And sometimes he'll write a song or even paint a picture now and then. These things can make up for anything. One year, a magazine came out with what they thought was a scandalous story. They reported how the unromantic Carl had given me a stove for Christmas. They assumed my husband, and if you're just joining us, Dolly Parton's husband, we're reading My Life and Other Unfinished Business. They assumed my husband would give me some jewelry or a car. I don't know why people thought that was such a funny thing. Do they think stars don't eat? Just because they don't use the bathroom? Well, they don't know this star, but Carl does. He knows how I love to cook for everybody. I seem to cook for everybody but Carl. He cooked for himself. He doesn't like my food because it's too rich and fattening, but he is supportive of his passion of mine. On holidays, Carl will go to the dollar store to buy me plastic containers and baskets to hold the treats I fixed. This way, I can give it away to the homeless or to friends and family who like my cooking for the same reason Carl doesn't. Carl is always good about backing me up, but there was one time when it came quite a surprise to me. I was doing a show at a rodeo in Louisville, Kentucky. I was lost in a crowd of 1,000 who picked a giant barn-like arena. But at that time, I was opening my show with a classic song called Higher and Higher. Carl always loved that song. He was right there that night, and I caught a glimpse of him just as I went out on stage. As I began singing, I heard a strange voice. I glanced around at my background singers, only to find Carl at the microphone, letting it go. Carl has a real pretty voice, and I love hearing him sing around the house. And he'd always threatened. Wave at a couple new joiners. Oh, hi, Amy and Chasen27. Hope you are all well. Thanks for joining us. We're in chapter 12 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. And Esther Shop, you just joined. On a side note, really quick, I mentioned this already once, but we have all the videos up on YouTube. At the end of this video today, I will post the link. And then I will also put it in our direct Instagram stories for the day. So, go back to it. Okay, here I go. But I just couldn't let him go on without me some kind of real... Oh, wait. Carl has a pretty voice, and I love hearing him sing around the house. And he's always threatened that he'd get up on stage one day. But I thought he was kidding. He loved both of my background singers, Anita Ball and Richard Dennison. Rachel's husband. So he felt completely comfortable walking straight up there to finally get his chance for fun. But I just couldn't let him get one on me without some kind of retaliation. What kind of fun-loving wife would I be? I casually walked over to a cop who was right at the front stage. I leaned down to him and said, "That man back there in that white shirt is not part of our group. Somebody has been stalking me, and it might be him. Would you take him off stage and put him in jail until the show is over? Then I'll come and we can take care of it." Well, they did come up, and were about to haul him off when Don Warden stopped him. Afterward, Carl never mentioned a thing about it, and still hasn't to this day. And I've never said a word to him about it either. That's just the way we are. We do these things for the fun. Carl likes it better than when nothing is said, and it's just funny inside. Maybe it stays funny longer that way. Carl keeps a lot inside, but he's very opinionated. He loves to talk politics, sports, and especially religion. He would have made a great minister if you could get him to go to church on a more regular basis. He's more religious than I am. I guess I'm more spiritual, though. I don't argue religion like Carl can, and I don't talk politics either. So Carl has to do most of his opinionating with his family and friends. I try not to argue with Carl at all. We've never had a full-blown screaming fight. That may be because I always say I'm sorry, whether it's my fault or not. Carl would go to the grave before he would apologize, so he'd give me the cold shoulder until then. I'd rather say I'm sorry and get it all over with. So I guess to me, love means having to say you're sorry. I just know I don't want to say things to hurt him. Carl is a very stubborn yet sensitive person. Carl shows the true depth of his sensitivity. Carrie from Maison Lux, or Ben, another fellow retailer in Hermosa Beach, just joined us. We're reading Dolly Parton's biography, Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. A new wig every time we read. Back to it. Hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to wave at y'all. Okay. Carl shows the true depths of his sensitivity when it comes to his dogs. When he was a boy, he had a little Brindle and white puppy named Toodlum. They were buddies. Toodlum was part bulldog, so he was small but feisty. He fought all the other dogs down at the Cali, and Carl would proudly egg him on. Carl would bet money that his dog was the toughest. Then one day, Toodlum went up against a whole pack of fierce dogs, and they killed him. Well, Carl's sister said this just crushed him. He didn't get over that little dog for years. This story made me think I had to get him a dog someday. When we were building our house, Uncle Dot Watson and Aunt Estelle moved into a trailer on the property during the construction. Well, Dot also brought a couple of his hunt dogs with him, and one of them was named Blue. Blue liked it here on the farm, and he soon began to follow Carl everywhere he went. Carl began to get real attached to Blue. When the house was finished, Dot and Estelle moved back home. But Uncle Dot gave old Blue to Carl, and that's saying a lot. When a man gives away his favorite hunting dog, Blue was old when we got him, but he was around for many years. Then one day he just went to the barn and lay down and died. If you're just joining, I know I already said this a few minutes ago, but we're going to do it again. There's a lot of you joining us. This is Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business. Reading for today. I could see how sad Carl was, so I came up with this idea to get a new dog. I hunted far and wide to find a brindle white Boston Terrier, the same color as Toodlum. I was on the road at the time, so my brother Randy and his wife, Deb, drove down to pick it up at the breeders in Brownsville, Tennessee. They put the puppy in a basket by the kitchen door with a ribbon and tag around the neck and said, "Old Blue sent me." Well, Carl found him just as planned. He must have had an idea that it was me, but I never admitted to anything. I believe to this day that Carl thinks Blue had something to do with it. I came home a few days later and denied any knowledge of the wriggling, panting surprise. I asked what the puppy's name was, and Carl said, "I don't know yet. He'll name himself when the right time comes along." So one night, at supper, we were both looking at his big old eyes when Carl yelled, "Popeye!" That's his name. Hell, he's pop-eyed. Well, he had always kept our dogs outside up to this point, but Popeye was different. He was like a new kid in the house, but then I've never seen a kid chew a couch like Popeye. He was a tough little handful. Carl had never trained a dog before either, so many a chair was torn up, carpet stained and drapes peed on, but it didn't matter. Carl loved him. He would cuddle him and just hold him like a baby with a flat, wet nose who snored like an old man under the covers. Carl and Popeye ate together, slept together, traveled all over the country together. In most places we stayed, like the Bel Air Hotel where I lived during the filming of 9 to 5. You aren't allowed to have dogs. But Carl had a special suitcase with a breathing hole at the end of it. He could covertly carry his pal in and out of any fancy hotel without raising a bellhop's eyebrow. Popeye didn't move or make a sound until Carl opened it up and gave him the okay. He even stashed him in the suitcase behind the couch when the maids came. Popeye loved that suitcase because he loved going. Every time he heard the zipper on that suitcase, he'd come running. The years went by and our special little friend became ill with a disease called crypto. It's a disease usually found in large animals like cattle that is picked up from the foul manure. They didn't think he's gonna make it, but they were testing a new drug called Auburn University, and we decided to let them try it on Popeye. He was just the saddest, weakest, most pitiful little thing you ever did see. With his hair falling out, he looked like a rat, and his eyes were so big in his head. Carl stayed with him every moment. He'd carry him around on a pillow and lay him on the table while he cooked. He even slept with him on the floor. Anyone who loves an animal like that knows there isn't even a question when the animal gets sick. You do whatever you have to do, and that's what Carl did. The treatment worked, and Popeye lived several more years. His hair came back, but a little more gray. His struggle for life had made him old. He was blind and couldn't hear well. He spent most of the rest of his life just lying around snoring, but what the heck? That's not so different from some of my relatives. Unfortunately, because of all the drugs and illness, Popeye developed heart trouble, and one day Carl came in from the barn to find Popeye had gone to sleep in his chair in the den, never to wake up again. I never seen a man more grief-stricken. Carl built a tiny coffin in his wood shop and wrapped Popeye in an old purple robe that he loved to lie in. Carl put some of Popeye's toys beside him and buried him out in the front yard, right below our bedroom window, and then made a small wood marker and carved Popeye onto it. He placed this on the grave, then grieved uncontrollably for a year. He couldn't stand to see photos of Popeye or any of his toys. I had to put everything away until he was able to deal with it. It took almost 3 years for Carl to really get back to normal. I eventually built a tiny fence surrounding Popeye's grave in the flower garden. I got him a real marker too. It's a precious little statue of a Boston Terrier carved in a stone. That's just about as tough as Popeye was. And now we've added a memorial for Old Blue and our other dogs too. We can talk about Popeye a lot now, but Carl doesn't want another dog, and I know better than to push my luck trying to get him one. So now Carl has to put up with just me and my lack of a little flat, wet nose. Carl was wonderful when Popeye got sick, but he doesn't handle it well when I'm ill. He gives me lectures and says things I don't want to hear, like, well, hell, you wouldn't be sick if you'd slow down long enough. Maybe he's right. I think maybe he's just scared. So I try to keep more serious things from him. Carl doesn't get involved with my business decisions. He trusts my judgment and knows that I've surrounded myself with good people. This doesn't mean he doesn't have an opinion, though. He's always telling me that this or that song would be great for me or for somebody else. In fact, he loved the song Here You Come Again when he heard it and said, that's a damn million-selling record you've got out there. So when it did become a hit, I had them make a gold record with his name on it. And he's even given me a few ideas for some songs to write that turned out really well. But however talented and opinionated Carl may be, he still doesn't want the responsibility of making high-powered business decisions. So that's up to me. Carl has put up with a lot from my being in show business, but from most standpoints, he's just about got it made. He has anything he wants, and he has his own time. He doesn't have to work if he doesn't want to, but he loves to work, so he does. He's pretty much retired now, but he never stops working around the house and on his cars. Carl sticks fiercely to the same daily routine, so I always know where he'll be if I call him from the road. I, on the other hand, just love spontaneity. To me, any change is good, except when it comes to Carl. If he gets thrown off schedule, it whacks his whole day. Don't we all know people like that? Goodness. It works out well between me and Carl. We both get what we really want. We both have the freedom to come and go and do as we please. Carl doesn't really mind my being gone unless I'm gone for more than 2 weeks at a time. 2 weeks is just about my limit as well. After that, we both get a little nuts and a little testy. And when I'm gone, Carl's not threatened at all. He's not jealous of me, and I'm not jealous about him. I've been a lot more jealous about other people than I've ever been about Carl, and he feels the same towards me. I guess that's just what comes from being sure of each other and our relationship. We trust the strength of our foundation that we have, and that's what has helped Carl survive through all the rumors, truths, and lies that go along with my celebrity. And he's had to endure quite a heap. Carl has had various people, even family members, approach him to say I was having an affair with this or that person. Carl would simply say, well, I would think less of that of any man that didn't fall in love with her. And he means it. He seems to have an understanding of how I am and how people are toward me. He seems to know that I'll be back and that love affairs and relationships are just part of the dealings with people. He knows that I will always come home, and as long as I live, we'll always be together. That's all that matters to him, and he's right. Carl is not as affectionate as I am. He's not a big cuddler like me. So I force him to let me baby him and make him baby me. He loves it eventually. Sorry, I had a hiccup. I need to get a water. Hold on. We're finishing up the chapter 12 of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business. Okay, he loves it eventually. I pinch him or grab him in unusual places, geographically and otherwise. If it embarrasses him, well, it's just that much more fun for me. But there was a time that the tables were turned. Carl and I were roaming around a drugstore, and I wandered off to pick up something to take on the road with me. After a while, I spotted Carl with his face buried in one of his favorite magazines. So I just sashayed up behind him, whispered affectionately into his ear, and proceeded to fill up his balls. Well, I'm proud to tell you, he was just climbing that magazine rack. And when I glanced around to see if anybody was watching, to my great horror, I discovered Carl behind me. He was watching the whole fiasco and quietly going nuts with laughter. And there, I had grabbed a whole handful of somebody else. Well, my poor victim turned around in alarm. I just went running to Carl pleading, you gotta go apologize to that guy. I was burning with embarrassment. So Carl did tell the man that he was sorry, that I mistook his identity. But I don't think Carl was sorry about it at all. With all the entertainment he got out of it, I was never more embarrassed. But I can laugh about it now. When I picture this guy telling the incredible tale of the time Dolly Parton played grab ass with him, I guess this has taught me to pay a little more attention. That is one funny story. Oh my gosh. Carl is still one of the most handsome men I've ever met, including the one in the drugstore. He has wonderful brown eyes, dark skin, and big, long smile. And I'm extremely lucky because to Carl, I will always be young and beautiful. He thinks I'm the most beautiful woman in the world, the whole world. He still sees me just like he did the day we met in Nashville, when I was 18 and had on my little red rib tickler outfit. He says the reason he thinks I'm pretty is because I'm just this much from being damn ugly. That's funny. I'm sure she meant it like this. Just this much from being damn ugly. And he's not joking. He doesn't like perfect beauty as much as he likes flaws and scars and freckles and crooked little smiles. So, Carl certainly got his blessing in me, and I know for certain that I have been blessed with him. Our relationship has not always been so perfect. A year or so after we were married, Carl decided to ask me if he was the first man that I ever been with. I'm not sure why he asked me that particular point. I thought that maybe because I was getting so involved and actually enjoyed sex so much. Possibly Carl felt I knew more than I should. Maybe he'd figured I'd either been around, was getting around, or wanted to start getting around. Whatever the reason, I didn't understand why he was asking me then. But I didn't even think about lying because our relationship has been so good, open, and honest. So when Carl asked me if it was the first, I told him no. And it just about shattered him. Waves a bunch of people that are just joining us. We are finishing up this day's chapter reading of Dolly Parton, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. So when Carl asked me if he was the first, I told him no, and it just about shattered him. But he got over the hurt and confusion and never mentioned it again. He became an even better husband and friend after that. In fact, he'd been the best husband a girl could ever have. And I grew up in a way. I got over it too. In the end, our marriage evolved into a very strong and understanding relationship. Maybe this is partly due to what we went through. It was still a painful experience. I often wonder what I would say if Carl asked me that same question today. What would I answer? If I knew then what I know now, I probably would have said yes. I don't think you should have to admit things that you don't want to if it can cause you great trouble down the road. Even though that was a painful learning experience, it did inspire me to write a song called Just Because I'm a Woman. And that concludes chapter 12 of the continuing saga of the 90's biography, Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. We had a few joiners at the end of today's chapter. And because of that, we've been reading this book. We have 16 chapters total. We're starting 13 on, today's Monday, Wednesday. We do it every other day. We finally were able to get these chapters that I have been reading up on YouTube. So here, I'm going to pass around the link, because if I did it like this, you would see it backwards. But this is the link to all of the chapters, not including today's, because I have to go upload it. So it won't be available till probably later this evening. But if you go to www.youtube.com/Curious Workshop, and that is CuriousWorkshop, you should be able to find the videos. We created a whole section called Curious Storytime. There's even a classic video. I'm going to turn this around. There's even a classic video of when Bryce opened up the Hermosa Beach location in 2009. It's classic. We totally forget that it's up there, and every time we go to look at YouTube or something, we realize, oh yeah, you had made a video back in the day. Yeah, can you believe that that was 11 years ago? And he opened that business. A little side trivia. I know this isn't talking about Dolly, but he opened that location after he left the island of Kauai, and the country was right in the middle of the Great Recession that Obama inherited from Bush. Yep, political statement, and I'm not gonna, apologize. That's just how we feel. anyways, amongst everybody saying don't open it, he did. And so here we are 11 years later, enjoying a new type of recession. We call this an illness recession. But anyways, we will be reading chapter 13 on Wednesday. I'll turn it around because I know you all like seeing it. So, chapter 13, Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, will be read with a new wig on Wednesday. This wig just cracks me up. Our friend Mary let me borrow a bunch of wigs. I'm showing my roots with it. It's kind of funny. It looks like Anne Margaret got a blow job or something. A blow, you know what I mean, of a dry blow or something. But, okay, I'm now rambling. I'm sure, once again, I will see you all later. Check out youtube.com/Curious Workshop, and you can look at all the videos that we posted so far from this story time. And I will put the link on our Instagram stories right after I end this. Okay, everyone have a good Monday. Thanks for shopping our online business, and yeah, I'll see y'all later. See ya. Oh, Willow should be here next time. Bryce took her to the beach to get a little exercise because she was going stir crazy. I'm rambling. See ya.